far to the south of New Zealand, where the ocean roars and icy winds carve the waves, lies a remote speck of land, Antipodes Island. For centuries, it was a sanctuary, a place where the air thrummed with the songs of seabirds and the wind whispered secrets through the waving tussock grass. It was the heartbeat of nature, untouched and wild. But over a century ago, that heartbeat began to fade. An invisible invasion arrived, carried silently by ships that came and went. Hidden in the deep ferns, in the warm burrows where petrels laid their eggs, small, dark shadows began to move. Mice. Not the timid creatures of storybooks, but a relentless, hungry swarm that spread across the island like a plague. Every night, the ground itself seemed to rustle with their hunger. They were insatiable. They devoured seeds before they had a chance to sprout, turning fertile ground barren. They gnawed through the nests of rare, ground-dwelling seabirds, preying on eggs and helpless chicks. They consumed the island's unique insects, some of which had existed there since before human memory. The island's symphony of life began to fall silent. The great flocks of birds that once painted the skies started to dwindle. Chicks perished before they could take their first flight. The vibrant green of the island slowly began to fade, choked by an enemy no bigger than a finger. The island, once so full of life, was dying. It was losing its breath, its very soul. But then, a small group of people looked south and refused to accept this silence. They were scientists, conservationists, and dreamers from New Zealand's Department of Conservation. They held on to a belief that many thought was impossible, that an island, once broken, could be healed, that humanity could undo the damage it had caused. They called their ambitious plan the $1 Million Mouse Project. The name wasn't really about the money. It was about the immense value of what they were trying to save. It was about having faith that the delicate balance of an entire ecosystem could be restored, faith that they could give the island back its voice. The planning took years. Every detail was meticulously worked out, every risk assessed. Finally, in the winter of 2016, the mission began. A helicopter lifted off, its blades cutting through the frigid air as it flew towards Antipodes Island. Inside, a dedicated team prepared for one of the most audacious conservation efforts in history. Their weapon wasn't a gun or a trap, but something far more precise. From the air, they began to release small, bright green pellets. Each one was no larger than a coin, containing a specially designed bait that would be lethal to the mice, but pose minimal risk to the island's native inhabitants. It was an aerial assault born not of destruction, but of restoration. The work was perilous. The weather in this part of the world is famously treacherous, turning from calm to furious in a matter of minutes. Giant waves battered their support boats, and icy, driving rain soaked them to the bone. They were isolated, thousands of kilometers from home, fighting against the elements. But they didn't stop. They stayed. Because in the deafening silence of the island, they could hear what was missing. They heard the ghosts of the bird songs, the rustle of leaves that should have been, the life that was supposed to be there. And that sound, that absence, pushed them forward. For weeks, they worked through brutal storms and long, sleepless nights. They crisscrossed the island, ensuring every valley, every cliffside, and every patch of grass received the bait. It was a painstaking, methodical process. When their work was finally done, they packed up and left. From the outside, the island looked exactly the same. Gray rocks, green moss, and the endless, howling wind. But beneath that quiet surface, a miracle was beginning to unfold. The bait did its job. One by one, the mice disappeared. The relentless nightly consumption stopped. The ground, for the first time in over 100 years, could finally rest. And then, slowly, tentatively, life began to return. Months later, the scientists went back. Their hearts were filled with a mixture of hope and anxiety. What would they find? They landed and began to walk, their eyes scanning the ground. And then they saw it. Tiny tracks in the mud, the tracks of the antipodes snipe, a small rare bird that had been pushed to the brink. They saw the brilliant green of the antipodes parakeet, hopping fearlessly among the grasses. They found petrels and prions, birds of the open ocean, returning to their ancestral burrows, building nests where the ground had once been stripped bare. The soil itself seemed to be breathing again. Seeds, long dormant, finally began to sprout, pushing new green shoots toward the sky. Even the wind felt different. It was lighter, freer, carrying not just the scent of salt and rock, but the promise of new life. 2 years after the operation, the official confirmation came. After extensive monitoring and testing, Antipodes Island was declared completely, officially, mouse-free. An entire world had been restored. The project leader, standing on a wind-swept cliff and looking out over the vast, churning ocean, whispered to the wind, "We came to heal what we broke." And we did. It wasn't a victory over nature, but a reunion with it. A profound act of reconciliation. It was a powerful reminder that while human hands have the capacity to destroy, they also hold the incredible power to restore. Today, when the southern winds sweep across Antipodes Island, the tussock grass dances freely once more. And if you listen closely, you can hear the birds singing again. Their songs fill the air not with fear, but with the pure, unbridled joy of freedom. And in the echo of those songs, there's a message deeper than triumph. It's a message of forgiveness. The story of Antipodes Island teaches us something timeless and essential, that it's never too late to make peace with the natural world. It shows us that even the smallest forms of life, a single bird, a tiny seed, a whisper of wind in the grass, deserve a chance to live again. Thank you so much for watching this story of hope and renewal. If you were as moved as we were, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories about our incredible planet. See you next time.